Welcome back to the boat restoration series. This is episode 19, where I'm converting a 1940 seaplane tender into an off-grid liveaboard. I started back in the cabin wheelhouse entrance, sanding all of the timbers for the bench seating area before applying a mahogany wood stain to all of the timbers. I sanded all of this by hand and wiped down the entire area using white spirits on a tack cloth to lift any remaining dust after hoovering. I then left it for some time in order for the white spirits to evaporate fully before applying the wood stain. I brushed on the mahogany wood stain, and I did the same for the plywood backing sections that you can see there at the back of the bench area. I'm also sanding this lovely ladder which goes in place under the sliding door of the wheelhouse cabin. Some deck maintenance was needed here on the starboard side towards the bow at the side of the fore cabin. The deck was moving, which resulted in the Sikaflex unadhering to the deck planking. This was an easy fix. I pre-drilled the plank before securing the brass flathead screws in place, and then used the trusty Yankee screwdriver in order to secure them down nice and tight. Also, there's been a leak on the port side of the wheelhouse cabin. I scraped out any of the old Sikaflex and dried this area as best I could. It's been raining a lot these days. You know, the wood is not going to be dry. I made sure to use a blowtorch to really dry out all of that wetness, and I removed as much moisture as I could, and before reapplying any Sikaflex and eliminating that leak. In the near future, all of the decks are going to get sealed and covered in canvas, just like the technique and process that I've used for the 2 cabin roofs, and that will do the right job in preventing any future deck leaks. So over the years, the ladder has contracted a small bit of rot. It's only minor, and it's nothing a bit of wood hardener couldn't fix. And I just made sure to pre-drill plenty of holes and give it a few sessions of wood hardener until it soaks it up and until it can't soak up anymore. And then that has done the job rightly. It's stabilized the timber, and that will do the trick. My father and I took a trip down to my uncle Peter, the master craftsman, aka the shipwright, and he was kind enough to make us up a new inner gunnel that will replace the old rotten one, and then that can allow us to get the new laminated plywood in place, which will in return replace the rotten double diagonal mahogany at the hole in the bow. So we brought him the required measurements of the inner gunnel from the old one, and then he cut it and shaped this new one for us. There's 2 methods we could have used for making this inner gunnel. We could have steam bent the timber, cutting the groove and rebate first, but we decided to use a larger piece of timber that we could then cut the curve from, so this way we didn't have to do any steam bending. So Peter used the rebate plane to begin cutting the groove in which the plywood replacement for the double diagonal mahogany will sit into. It's this groove, this kind of step that it will sit into. Of course, then it has a gradient as well, but we'll work towards that. And first, he's just getting the rough shape of it here. Peter is using a spoke shave on the replacement frame, transferring the angle which the plywood will then fit into and run along this curve.
Would you tell you what?
I don't know. So they're coming off the blade. Pull out that plug anyway.
We joined 2 lengths of timber in order to make the required depth, which is needed for the plywood to fit into. In order to get the correct angle for the new inner gunnel, we transferred it from the old outer gunnel. We found the best part of the old one, where it wasn't warped or distorted from rot, and this then we transferred and used a regular hand plane to get this curve to make it, and we kept checking it as we went along, shaving off more timber. And the great thing about a plane is that you can actually angle the blade, and that worked perfectly for transferring that angle.
Yeah, you can't take any more really, except for we have.
So I really wanted to make sure that these 2 lengths of timber secured together would be strong. I didn't want to just use glue, although Cascamite is fantastic, a fantastic wood glue, and I knew it would be enough. It would be enough, but I decided, okay, I want to make it stronger, we'll go with dowels. We decided to go with dowels. We pre-drilled and we glued it up with Cascamite. Then we obviously used a bit of Cascamite on the dowels before hammering them in place. And this worked perfectly. Like, this is rock solid, and this is gonna stand to it. After pre-drilling and hammering in the dowels, I was careful not to split them, although I am using a metal hammer here. Certainly a wooden mallet would have been the ideal tool for the job, but I was just cautious and tapping them in, and this worked well. You can see, like, I still have to use quite a lot of force. It's a nice snug fit, and just as you hear the sound shift, you can tell when they're home, and that is a satisfying sound.
That's right, just before the. You got started again.
So we finally got the chimney back in place for the stove. Now it's secured, it's permanent, and we went with stainless steel bolts rather than using the screws. It's far better with the stainless steel bolts. We used butyl rubber again and Sikaflex to create a nice sealant, or create a nice gasket that's waterproof, and this will work nicely. So I'm chiseling out sections for where the oak ribs and frames fit into the inner gunnel. This will now allow it to sit in better. After a lot of tweaking and fine tuning, it finally fits nicely and nice and snug in place. There's still a bit of work to be done in order to get the plywood to fit into that lip nicely, but this is it done for now. And in the next episode, we'll get to see all this work with putting the oak frames in place, getting them nicely fitted, and then as well the oak ribs and the frames, and then getting the plywood in place. And that will make for an interesting episode. This is a job that was long overdue. It needed to get to this section, and at least now we're getting it done before the hard winter hits. Well, we wouldn't be wrapping up an episode without more rain, so there you go, me running for cover in the lashing rain and waiting out for another dry day. So guys, stay tuned and make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Click that notification icon to get notified whenever I upload a new episode. I also have a PayPal link in the description if you feel like supporting my project there. I really appreciate all the support that I'm getting from you guys. You know, I'm seeing all the comments, I'm reading them, and it's fascinating. It's absolutely amazing to see such support and advice that you guys and information that you guys are sharing with me that's helping me along this journey. I really can't thank you guys enough, so thanks a million. As always, stay productive and have fun creating.